All right, everyone. You know what? After having some technical difficulties, we'll go live. We'll get rolling. Apparently, some people can see it, some people cannot see it. Like the fun part of tech, right? In some cases, we are so advanced and we talk about blockchain and we talk about this and we talk about that. In some cases, simple things breaks down, right? Um, so we will get started ASAP. And welcome, Tony, to today's event.
Thanks, Ali. Happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Right. So everyone, we want to make sure that this event is interactive. This event, ask questions, right? Okay. And we want to make sure that, you're participating. So please make sure that, send us your questions, and we'll try to answer that during, our presentation as well. And let's have fun, right? Okay. So let's get started now. Before I basically dive down in the comments section, tell us that if you are using LinkedIn. If you are, how active are you on it, right? Do you post content on it regularly, or what kind of, how do you use LinkedIn, right? Okay. Have you done it to grow your firm or a practice, right? So yeah, share that with us. That'll be amazing, and we'll get started, right? So before, right, the most important stuff, who do we have with us, right? So Tony, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Tony Albrecht. As you see there on the slide, I'm the founder of a company called Contender Creative, and we are an agency that helps law firms leverage LinkedIn. I graduated from law school in St. Louis, Missouri in 2009. I spent most of my career as a litigator in insurance defense firms out of St. Louis. Left the practice of law in late 2021 to pursue some more entrepreneurial impulses. And one of the things that happened once I stopped practicing was I took a role where I needed to start uh, learning to use LinkedIn more than I had throughout my career in litigation, when I, like so many of us in the legal profession, viewed LinkedIn as nothing more than the place where you stash your digital resume and announce when you have changed jobs. To me, that's all LinkedIn was for. Every once in a while, I might share a press release from the firm as well, right? And once I started using the platform, uh, in a new way, and frankly, starting to learn about sales on LinkedIn, where there's this really robust, dynamic community of sellers who are sharing best practices, and tips, and stories, and supporting one another. The platform opened up in this brand new way that then has really changed how I think about LinkedIn as a whole. And also, what I started to discover was there is so much potential here for lawyers and legal professionals to be sharing their expertise, to be networking in more substantive ways, and to be building their reputations and their practices on this platform in a way that really the profession just hasn't. They really haven't been. So that's the, I would say, 75-second intro to get us rolling.
I mean, Tony, you are a perfect example how lawyers should be using LinkedIn, right? The journey you share and the content you share. And if you're not following Tony on LinkedIn, I highly, highly go and recommend you to go and check him out. Make sure you give him a follow, right? You'll be surprised by the content he puts out. Myself, my name is Ali. I'm a co-founder of a platform, a legal services platform called Logic.com. Logic.com connects clients with lawyers, and we also have a fixed price services part on the platform as well, where clients can go in and buy fixed price services, right? So I know this because I work with lawyers all day every day, that LinkedIn is one of the most under leveraged tool they have at their disposal, which they can deploy to quickly grow their practice, right? And I'm talking about quickly. I mean, in 30 days you can start seeing some solid results, right? So we talk about in some other marketing tactics, right? Your firm may be applying, let's say it's organic strategies, right? SEO, content based strategies. They take time. One good part about LinkedIn is if you really show up every day and if you really put yourself out there, you start seeing results fairly fast, right? And tell me one thing, where else or what other platform gives you an opportunity to connect with an individual who may be working up in the corporate, who may be running a business, right? Okay, no other platform has this capability to directly connect with a professional, right? And again, in a professional setting, right? So it has amazing powers, right? We're going to talk about it in today's presentation, so let's get started, right? Okay. So let's first put things into perspective, right? Why LinkedIn, right? Why, right? Part of it, as Tony was answering and I was answering to, 900 million users, 900 billion. Let's get let's get into perspective. But I will add one more thing here, that lawyers always talk about quality clients. When I need better clients, when we talk about average income of a LinkedIn user, it's highest among all the social media channels. It sits around 75 $80,000 versus Facebook is $30,000. So you see
Mm.
kind of an audience these different platforms are attracting: educated, sophisticated, right? Tony, what would you say? What would you say? Why? What are the other reasons? Lawyers should get on LinkedIn.
When I think about uh, the potential that really remains untapped for the legal industry, um, I had a post the other day where a lawyer came in with some pointed questions that, frankly, I think would reflect the conventional wisdom about it. And what this person was asking was, why would I why would I spend my time building my presence on LinkedIn? Who in their right mind would go looking for legal representation on LinkedIn, or would go to LinkedIn to try to connect with other lawyers? Um, and this person said, there are Facebook groups for that. And I found the questions to be, um, they're valid questions, but the Facebook thing it's funny to me. And that's like we're saying here. So 900 million users, it's nearly 200 million in the United States. If you are a lawyer in the United States or in Canada, just about every other lawyer is on the platform because we all feel like we need to be there, right? But um, it's so peculiar that the way we were trained to think about LinkedIn is very passive, right? It's not really a place for contributing to conversations or putting things out in the world. It's a place for, like, posting a job, or, like I said, putting your resume out there. Um, so why we don't think about the world's largest professional networking site as a place for business development and a place for active networking in a digital space is really peculiar, but that is the opportunity, is that everybody's there. And when it comes to becoming a content creator or somebody who's just contributing to conversations on a consistent basis, what we found, and frankly, why I've started the business I've started, helping law firms leverage the platform. It's a business that I've been working on now for only 5 months, so we're pretty new in the thing. But we've been helping the law firms gain traction very quickly because um, very few people are creating content on the platform, and that is the opportunity where it's like all these people are here, all this attention has been collected to this platform, and then our feeds are made up of job announcements and press releases. So if you are somebody who's willing to show up and say something, the way I talk about, say something that matters to you, right? Share things that you care about in addition to updates in the law, updates with your firm, developments in your subject matter expertise. If you're willing to show up and share pieces of yourself, you're able to have a disproportionate uh, growth in terms of the amount of that attention you're able to draw to yourself. And ultimately, I think that's like why it's worth spending time on LinkedIn because your clients are there, potential referral sources, they're there. Um, and it really does in a landscape, a legal marketing and advertising landscape that is so ferociously competitive. LinkedIn remains, I mean, I describe it as open blue waters, as opposed to the sort of chum filled, um, tumultuous uh, seas of that space.
That's awesome. Excellent points, Tony. So how to use how to use LinkedIn, right? Now mind you that as Tony said, like generally people will go in and use it for jobs and like press releases and things like that. But you as a lawyer, how you should be using it, right? Okay. Um, and there are three critical things. These are three pillars, I would say, right? Who you are, right? Okay. You have a personal brand, you have a personal identity, which you can put it out there. What you do, right? The areas you specialize in, right? Okay. Your experience, your the legal work you have done in the past, and what you care about, your community, your family, right? The people around you, right? So a lot of things we care about in our lives, right? So there are very different ways that you can leverage the platform, right? And we talk about legal services, Tony. We always talk about one thing, right? That it's the transaction of trust.
Mm.
If they trust you, they'll do business with you. As simple as that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And here we're getting into this idea of personal branding, which for me, I started posting more consistently, or really for the first time in November of 2021. And at that time, the idea of personal branding, I felt a definite aversion to it. I would almost call it an allergy. Uh, and what I've come to, I still don't particularly like the term, but I think it is a an essential term for getting yourself out there and building your reputation in what is increasingly a digital world. Right? Personal branding is how you cut through the noise online. And so, what we've got here with LinkedIn is this place where all this attention is gathered. The people on your feed would like their feeds to be more interesting. They may not know it because we just haven't had much worth paying attention to. Or and I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't be mean toward press releases. They have their place. They're just not that interesting. When we're sitting on the couch at night, we're not pulling up press releases, to entertain ourselves, right? Social media is actually a place to where we go to be entertained, to actually connect with people, I, I would say when it's done well, we do it to feel better, you know, and to like, and again, very few of us in in the legal profession think about LinkedIn as an opportunity to do those things, right? We don't think of LinkedIn as a place where you can actually show up in a way where people can get to know, like, and trust you. But that is precisely the nature of the opportunity and why I think it's really in our interest as a profession uh, to start thinking more about personal branding. And I personally am trying to think about what might be a better term, but until we come up with one, how do you feel about the term personal branding, Ali?
Personal branding is important, right? Because okay, people do business with people, right?
That's it.
That's who you remember. I mean, you don't when you tell someone who's my lawyer, do you say this person works at XYZ firm, or do you take the name of an individual of your lawyer, right?
Hmm.
People remember you as a legal professional, as a personal brand, and that's one of the most under leverage under leverage opportunity lawyers have, that if they really build a personal brand strong, honestly, Tony, what I see it is like, they bulletproof their business development for the next 5 to 10 years. That's how powerful it is. Because what you're doing is you're creating a space for yourself, which is not which is not commoditizing you, right? Because then you're not getting compared, you're not getting commoditized, you're getting quality clients, and you're creating that space, right, for yourself. And that space is like you own that space. And how you can do that, personal brand is one of the best tools out there to do that.
That's really well put. And you had mentioned how you can get results pretty quickly when you start showing up on LinkedIn, and I have seen examples of how that's true. But the point you're making right here um, is one that I think is really important, which is that the personal branding game is a long game, right? It's one where, in this digital space, if you were able to show up consistently and you're able to develop that relationship with other people there, and you can do it one to one. You can also do it one to many. Right? That's the power, where you can start to grow an audience of people who feel like they know, like, and trust you. The benefits of doing that, they compound over time, where that collection of attention uh, is something that is able to be leveraged increasingly as you go along in ways that, I mean, to be honest with you, in my own life, the the impact of starting to build my personal brand, they've been totally unexpected, really surprising, and life changing in some really phenomenal ways. But they weren't linear or necessarily predictable. Where it's hard to, like, in the business we're building, where we do ghostwriting services, we do strategy, design, and execution for law firms. Um, I feel this impulse to want to provide metrics, or like, we're going to, that might be more akin to lead gen, like getting very specific, and that's really hard to do. You know, but what we are finding is that as we go along, um, we see, you know, increases in website traffic. We see increases in referrals. We see um, increases in people on the recruiting front. Right, basically that as you show up and kind of show who you are, um, there will be people out there who can see that and say, I would like to work with that person. Like that. That's the kind of, like, that person's vibe, that firm's culture really resonates. And so there are these different ways that the benefits can start to show up and accrue in ways that are um, not necessarily expected. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
It's an excellent point. There are direct and indirect benefits, right? So direct benefit is what you said, is you getting a client out of it. Like that's more transaction and direct
mhm.
benefit. But indirect benefit, Tony, I'll give an example. I was talking to a lawyer. She's active on LinkedIn. Uh, she ended up getting connected to someone who runs a Facebook group for women, with around 30,000 women in that Facebook group, and she's a family lawyer, and she talks about, like, family law to that group, how that connection was made through LinkedIn. She got access to this 30,000 people audience instantly because of the connection she made on LinkedIn. Now that like, that's very hard to do on Facebook, right? Because of course it's a cold closed circle, it's a more family focused, right? So yeah, I think excellent point. Why basically, like, why I always say that why is important, because if you don't get the why right, or you really buy into the why, then you won't gonna do it, right? So hopefully we can convince you there. So how to use it, right? Like, how can you use it? Let's put it this way: there's like hell lot of use case scenarios out there, right? One of the best things, like, I always say that, what we all remember, if we take, like, conversations, across, in our past, you'll see that a lot of the times you will remember the stories people told you. It's just such an amazing, powerful tool, like amazing, powerful tool, right? And still so under leverage, right, Tony? Like people love stories.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that is frankly the real unlock that if if there's one thing I would say to anybody who's watching this, where if you want to improve how your content is performing, one thing is just about every law firm focuses on their law firm page, and and the first thing we do is like, it's fine to be posting on the law firm page, but let's focus our attention on the personal pages of the attorneys. Which, to Andrew's point that he just made in the comments, there are more people following Gary Vaynerchuk on LinkedIn than VaynerMedia, which is his.
Yeah.
I think it's like a $400 million company that he's been building, and that's the first thing that we do. But then the second thing uh, that I would say to people is whatever you're posting, there's the tendency where we're posting about, we just got this verdict, or we're pleased to announce that we just moved offices. Um, oh, and I'm sorry, I just had a little bit of an interruption. Um, but whatever you're posting, how do you package it in the form of a story? Like whatever it is, if you're talking about a, a verdict that you just got, instead of just saying we're pleased to announce, do, 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 take a moment from that trial that really stands out and tell that story. And then within that story, you're sharing that we got this great result for our client, and we're really grateful for that. And I will guarantee you that that post will go way farther on the platform than the one that's announcing, because frankly, it's more interesting, right? It's that putting the social on the social media. It's providing that, what's number 4 on this list here, the showing the human side of things, which is that's what storytelling is all about, right? It's about our showing our own humanity and our own experiences.
Excellent point. And then one thing I will say that you made an excellent point. Brand versus a personal page, right? So company page versus a LinkedIn company page versus the personal profile. Your personal profile will always get more attention, traction, engagement, across the board, more reach, hands down,
Mhm.
right? And also, people remember people. You have a tremendous opportunity to own the space you practice in. That let that be regionally, locally, whatnot, right? But you have this tremendous opportunity to own it, right? And if you start showing up and start sharing the stories, right? And generally, right, it's like human to human connection, right? What Tony said, focus on the social element of social media. Don't just go and put content, don't just be me. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Don't be like that. Add value, tell stories, and the more you're going to do that, you'll see your engagement skyrocket, right? Like immensely skyrocket.
Mhm.
You'll be surprised by that, right? All right, probably one of my best, slides, Tony, because I tried to go to gym so many times, but I don't get the result that I want. The reason is I don't show up every day.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
so what would you say, Tony, like if someone struggles with consistency, right? There may be lawyers who are listening or legal professionals who are listening. They'll be like, you know what, yeah, you know what, Vic, I can generate content once in a while, but I really struggle with consistency, right? So
Yep.
and consistency being so important that you cannot just ignore that part. You cannot just decide, it's like your favorite radio show which comes on every Monday, they decide not to come next Monday. So if people expect you on social media, they expect you to show up because they're looking forward to hearing from you.
It's a great point. And when I think about consistency, when I'm working with my clients, the way we start is there are two pieces. One is um, let's pick a cadence that you can do without too heavy of a lift, right? We don't want to put too much stress on you. So to your comparison to working out, this is the sort of thing of if we're just getting off the couch where we've been sitting for the last 9 months, we're not going to go out and try to run a marathon. We're not going to try to post 2 times a day. We're going to post once a week. We're just going to try to come up with something solid that we can share once a week. And what we found is most goals that lawyers are going to have for LinkedIn, they can be achieved with posting once a week. Um, in addition to the posting, I would also, to your point about showing up daily, like showing up to comment on other people's posts on a daily basis is a good practice to get into. Because ultimately, and this is one of the unlocks, is that getting more attention for yourself um, often can be accelerated more by commenting on other people's posts than by posting your own stuff. So that's one of the unlocks to starting to get more attention on the platform. Right? So the first piece of the consistency thing is, can you commit to saying, I'm going to post 1 time a week and go from there. The second piece of it is what you've got here. The first thing where you're saying an editorial calendar. I would describe it as a system for capturing ideas and then developing them over time. So I think how a lot of us think about it is we wait for an idea to come. We wait for inspiration to come. There's a line from the British novelist Somerset Maugham I really like, where he was asked, whether he writes when inspiration strikes or on a schedule. He said, I write only when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, she strikes uh, every morning at 9 a.m. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. That if you show up, consistently, like those ideas get easier, but the container for capturing ideas and developing them can really take a lot of pressure. So that Somerset Maugham quote, he's talking about writing every day. I'm saying that if you're saying I'm posting once a week, then having a system where you're not showing up on that morning a half hour before you're trying to post and saying, what am I going to post today? And that over time, I used Trello for which is like a project management site that's where my editorial calendar is, and it's where I develop posts where I put ideas in there, I draft them, and then I refine them over the course of days or even weeks. Or there are a couple that have been in there for months that I still think are going to get made. But those are the two pieces that I think can help. I would say are most critical for being able to show up consistently over time.
Excellent points, right? I think uh, I think one thing you mentioned, which has to be highlighted, quality over quantity. I think that's what you're trying to say. That it's not about like showing
Yeah.
up daily. If you're showing up daily, you're doing it more from engagement perspective, commenting, interacting with people, having those real time conversations. But generally, you have to focus on quality over quantity, hands down, right? So don't beat yourself up that you cannot create content regularly, like daily. It's okay, because it's better to show up with good quality content versus showing up with an average content out there, right? So perfect post structure, right? I think Tony, there probably be very different ideas around perfect post structure, right? That how it may look
Mhm.
like, what it may sound like, right? And there's an example like the Lemless founder example. There's a second example is from your post, right? So how would you what would you say? What like, do you have a structure which you follow for your clients to create this like post which really strikes with people and get the right engagement? Because you get amazing engagement on your content, I'm sure you're
Mhm.
following a formula or a framework or a structure. So share that right here.
The structure I use is one I picked up from a creator named Justin Welsh, who's the godfather of what's now called solopreneurship. And he has an amazing course called The Operating System. It's what I used when I got started, and it had a huge impact on how I view the platform and how to create effective content. And the basic structure, three parts: what he would call a hook, you know, the the meat of the post, and then a call to engagement. And so the way I think about these things is, that first line or two, essentially what's going to come before the little see more when somebody's scrolling their feed. The most important thing you can do to have your post get seen by more people is to make it so that those two lines there, or three lines, um, make somebody want to click the see more. That's the most important piece. So I'm always trying to start a post with something, some sort of provocation or some sort of question that leads up to and builds suspense right to that point, right? So that you almost like impulsively, reflexively hit the see more. Then you're telling, you're laying out the core of the post, the message, that key insight or story you're sharing. And then the third piece, the call to engagement, usually it's a question, but it's something where you're basically inviting people to join you in the comments as well. The most important thing for getting your post to move is that first two lines. My understanding is the second most important thing you can do is get comments on your posts. So an effective call to engagement, or what I call a dismount, is giving somebody a reason to respond to what you said, in a way that the conversation actually gets taken from the post into the comments. And I found that I've made real friends in real life that started from comments on LinkedIn posts. And a lot of the best stuff happens in the comment section, which, I mean, frankly, is part of why my comment sections tend to be so active, because I love spending time in the comments. So I tend to do a lot. I tend to respond to, I try to respond to just about every comment. It gets harder as we go along. But so when it comes to the post structure, it's those three parts, and it's all geared toward. I just think of it as the post is essentially, and I try to make it a streamlined effort to get to my comment section. And those are all my secrets, Ollie. Now you know everything I know.
Hey, like this is an interesting, like, I mean, and I mean, the proof of the pudding, right? I mean, you're saying that uh, this client, this attorney is your partner, but it's also a
Mhm.
lawyer, and their reach is pretty much like, highest in the space they're operating, the practice area, and I would assume the city they are in. So
Mhm.
so I mean, you shared the secret sauce right there, that what's working, and how lawyers can get basically the same results out there, right? So that's pretty impressive. So, like, now a lot of lawyers, like, I mean, I think, like, in an average day, you guys are probably be sending out like 2 dozen emails or more, right? At least way more emails, right? So your emails have a lot of personal info, like personal contacts, your clients, your stakeholders, your, like, your referral partners, your ex-colleagues, right? So what you can do, this is a simple feature on LinkedIn, that you can actually go and add your personal contacts right? And import them and send them a mass invite, right? So and this is a really good way to extend your network. One thing, and let's say you interacted with a client 2 years ago, and you lost the contact. No, add them on LinkedIn. This helps them, that you're staying on top of their mind. So if tomorrow another opportunity comes in, you are the preferred lawyer they're going to, right? It's it's being on top of the mind, and this is a really good tool. I would say a hack that you can really increase your network by already inviting the people you already know, and if you already know them, this will eventually help with your engagement as well, right? So Tony, have you ever imported mass contacts into LinkedIn? And if you have any feedback or anything?
I I am discovering this feature as we speak. You are educating me here right now.
Amazing. I mean, no, so it's like the fun of learning from each other, right? As a community, this is impressive.
Hmm.
And the good part about these platforms is that 1 month out, you guys will go. There'll probably be one more new feature, which even I have no idea about, because they're it's still yet to be discovered. But there are so many built-in tools like this, right? Expand your network, that can instantly give you really good a reach and network, right? Okay. So refine your
One
profile. Sorry,
oh,
yes, Tony.
one other thing I would say about growing your network is I found that a lot of attorneys end up more or less ignoring their connection requests. They don't really send many connection requests, and they don't really look at the ones that are coming in. And I think a lot of that is due to this sense of uh, more like not wanting to get sold to, is what that, if I don't actually know you, I'm probably not going to want you in my network.
Yeah.
And what I encourage people uh, to try is be a little more open to growing. That we're not trying to stay necessarily limited in terms of uh, who we actually know out in the real world. Um, but how can we start to grow our network where we're able to connect with people who care about the same stuff we care about and are interested in the same stuff we're interested, uh, which I think it's valuable for networking purposes. Just that we're making connections uh, with the sort of people we want more of in our lives. Then also, from a content perspective, um, there are people out on this platform who will be interested in connecting with you if they see that you're producing good content uh, in a way that they're likely to they're more likely to react and or comment on your post than your typical lawyer is going to be, in a way that, as I said a few moments ago, like, if you want your content to move, you want people commenting on your posts. And if your network is like mine was 18 months ago, where I had 368 connections and almost all of them were in the legal industry, very few people in my network 18 months ago were ever going to comment on something. And it was going to be really hard for me to compel them to or inspire them to do that. A key to my growth has been adding people to my network, who are not just anybody, not totally random people who are just trying to sell me something, but adding people who want to engage, because it's those people who are then commenting on your post, which then helps your post get shown to more people, including those in your network as well as people beyond your network, in a way that's going to continue to help your posts reach more people and more of the people you're interested in getting in front of.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I mean, shouldn't be ignoring connection requests as long as it's not blatant sales. You may be one degree of connection away from your client. So
Right.
I mean, if I would be you, I would be very open to connecting with people. As I said, I mean, if someone is trying to sell you directly, I may ignore them, but definitely we shouldn't look every connection from that suspicion that uh, they're here to sell. Absolutely right. I think it's an excellent point. Uh, Refining your profile right now. I think this is this is an important one because it's like saying that um, people judge you by the cover, and we have this like inability to uh, like your profile is basically literally your first impression, right? And before someone tries to contact you to try to learn more about you, or let's say they're looking to do business with you, but they just googled your name and they found your LinkedIn profile, well, that's what will convince them to do like business with you and to trust you or not, right? And I think I
Mhm.
find it that a lot of lawyers just like leave it empty. Like it's just like they just leave the space empty, which is an amazing space, giving it to them to kind of own it, really make it work for them, right? And these are some of the examples, right? Like co-chair of this, like I mean, like each one of these examples, if you read legal, business, and government advisor, former government prosecutor, right? A lot of these headlines are trying to basically help people understand who you are, but the headline is not the profile. I mean, profile is such a dynamic thing. There are awards, non-profits, languages, like skills, endorsements. There's so much depth to LinkedIn profile. And you know what? I mean, I would say one thing. It's literally your micro website. And sometimes it may even do better than your micro website or your own website. So Tony, what do you
The,
like what would you say about profiles in journal, and what kind of advice would you give it to lawyers there?
the last point you made was about to be my first, which is my LinkedIn profile has more or less become my personal website, where you're able to learn a fair amount about me,
Yeah.
and then you had mentioned like the value of having a decent headline, like putting some thought into that, having a, a good about section, like sharing, um, again, going back to an earlier slide, you know, examples of what you know, what you do, and what you care about. Laying those things out in the about section can be really valuable. In your experience section, providing more details and bullet points about your accomplishments while you were in different roles can be really valuable. Um, there's something called creator mode, which one of the values of that, and it is, I have not heard or seen anything to indicate that creator mode helps posts move or spread more than otherwise. And, like it changes, instead of your your network being shown in terms of the number of connections, it uses the word followers, the people following you. But then the biggest piece about changing to creator mode, which you're able to do on your profile, is that you're then able to have a featured section, and there you're able to set up a link to set up a virtual consult with you, or send people directly to your website, or sign up for your newsletter, or download a resource you have available, or go to a podcast episode that you've been on. You're able to show people in a more prominent way opportunities to learn more about what you do. And so there are, as you're saying, there are all these different ways to to let people get a clear sense of who you are and what you're about through your profile, um, that we really do overlook. We think they should go to our website to do those things, but it's it's just so easy, um, to do it on your profile in a way that, to be honest with you, we spent very little time and energy on the Contender website. Like
Mm,
we have a very basic, pretty much like a landing page,
yeah.
right? Because frankly, my LinkedIn profile does almost all the heavy lifting for
Mhm.
building our business.
Yeah. It's also, I think, like Tony, with the whole advent of ChatGPT and Bing being the search engine. I mean, like it will be very interesting what happens to the websites, to the law firm websites over the next 2 years. right? I'm very curious to see that uh, how much impact it has in the future versus it had in the past. So yeah, no, like you're absolutely right that, and one last thing I will add, that there's a simple stat, right? That if your profile is more complete, has more information, you have a 13 times more likely chances that your profile will get more views. Simple, right? You're gonna get way more discovered then, right? So important points here, right? Okay. All right. This is something that a lot of people know, but I think this is such an underused thing. I mean, like, no other platform gives you this kind of a data on your video content. And not just on video content, generally your reach and your share. I mean, Facebook organically doesn't share with you that, hey, people from this company, people from this position are viewing your content. This is really powerful, really, really powerful. I mean, either you're looking for in-house counsel, work and connect with them, either you're looking for clients, right? Irrespective of that, this is a gold mine of information.
That's absolutely right. And I am a proponent of video content. I'm pulling up, I posted a video this morning, and this is a fairly, I just posted it actually not too long before we hopped on this call, about an hour and a half ago. And I can see that you know 203 different people have viewed it for a combined 115 minutes, so almost 2 hours of watch time. And in there, that it looks like almost about 25% of the people who have watched have been lawyers. So I'm able to like zero in on who's watching, how much they're watching, and what I've found with video and with my clients, I'm gently and consistently encouraging them to start to get reps on this, because you brought up ChatGPT, like the way the AI is developing. Um, I think video is only going to become increasingly more important. Where we are today, it is so much easier to have people know, like, and trust you by watching you talk on video for a little bit than through text. Um, so like that's already true in a way that I think is only going to become more valuable as like AI. Although how long we are from the point where AI is actually and able to produce videos that for all of us. I mean, we're almost there already, but I think it's just the upside to producing video content, even if it's, if you feel like it's awkward or you feel like you're not good on video, the only way to get good at it is to get reps on it, to try and to practice and keep doing it. And really, what I tell people is like, if it's not good, and maybe even if it is good, but you're new at it, the worst thing that's going to happen most likely is that very few people are going to see it. And that's the worst thing that's going to happen. Not that the world's going to end, right? But 100% worth the effort as far as I can tell.
Yeah, excellent point. And I think I believe that video just helps you build that personal connection, right? Uh,
Mhm.
it just, people get to know you at a much deeper level, because a written post, they get a different perspective about you. Video helps you build this personal connection with them, right? Right. Um, Create a newsletter, right? As I'm going through these features, and I kept on saying, like, this is my favorite feature about LinkedIn. This is my favorite feature about LinkedIn. But there is like freaking so many things on LinkedIn which are impressive, right? So, and this is just an example I was trying to give, that, right? Just publishing a newsletter on LinkedIn is also an amazing, amazing tools to build your audience. It's an amazing tool and underutilized tool, right? But what are your thoughts about Tony, about the newsletter? The fact that it's for free. I mean, let's say you go and buy Mailchimp, right? And if you have more than 2,000 subscribers or whatnot, then you're paying them. Uh, LinkedIn sends an email to all your subscribers on your behalf, right? So how would you talk, like, how would you say, or what would you say to lawyers who are looking at newsletter as an option, or who haven't deployed newsletter as a tool to grow?
It's a really valuable way to share longer form content, things that are meatier and more substantive, maybe, than what you would include in a single post. Um, I will say my own newsletter for Contender. We have the Linked Lawyer newsletter, which we decided not to do through LinkedIn. We actually are using ConvertKit for that, um, which I mean, for me was just a question of like how we wanted to build our list, our email list. But the the newsletter function on LinkedIn, I think, as you're saying, it reduces so much friction. It makes it so easy to get the thing started and get it off the ground, which is huge. It just removes so much of that, the potential stumbling blocks to getting an email newsletter off the ground, which is awesome. And then, like you're saying, getting in front of people, and having LinkedIn help facilitate that process, it it is so valuable. So I would say if you're interested in starting one, eh, I would recommend trying to get pretty specific in terms of your topic. You don't want to just say, I'm going to write about the law. Like you want to, like, and yours is a good example with Lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
Where you're saying how to grow a law firm. That like each week, Ali is providing, tips and tools and best practices for how you can grow your business, right? And the more specific you can be, the better shot you're going to have at, let's say, being able to cut through the noise and really give people something that will keep them coming back.
Okay. Excellent point. Just want to make sure we are presenting. Yes. Like also, Tony, I think uh, longer form content. A lot of people really love longer form content in some industries, right? Some verticals. Uh, I think maybe the practice area you are in, longer form content may work better for you, right? Let's say if you really want to go
Mhm.
in detail about the subject matter, you really want to explain something, then longer form content is really good for you, right? You know, Maybe let's say you highlight a case every week and talk about it and do a more or less a commentary style. Like there's so many ideas around long form content you can deploy. Uh, you can, let's say, as an immigration lawyer, you can talk about numbers and stats, a weekly update about, like, through your newsletter, right? So there's a lot of ideas here, but definitely an underutilized tool when it comes to, like, when it comes to lawyers, like, creating a newsletter, right? An excellent point, Andrew. I mean, you're right, you're bang on that. Not just creating video, but also repurposing that content, right? Because we talk about micro content on TikTok, Reels, social media, right? This all of this highly addictive content as YouTube Shorts. You can repurpose that, right? So there's a tremendous opportunity from the videos you can create, right? Now, like another different, like, uh, thing on the platform, which is either it's not used effectively by lawyers, or they probably don't know about it much. So join or create the groups, right? So let's say you are a lawyer who works in construction space. There is, like this is an example, right? Alberta Construction Association, 2.5 thousand members. This is your audience. You need to connect with them, right? There are groups in every industries and verticals which you can join to get more clients, to build your authority, to basically build, like, network. And also you have an opportunity to create groups as well. Sorry.
Yeah, groups are an interesting thing on LinkedIn. Where so I have the Linked Lawyer community, which, one of the main features is a private LinkedIn group, and they really can be valuable ways to, like, connect with people who care about the same thing or interested in the same topic you're interested in. There's some limitations, and this is something I've been told from the days before I was active, where LinkedIn groups used to be much more vibrant. Um, but there seems to be a persistent issue where if you post something in a group, that post is not it's going to have a hard time making it onto the feeds of group members in a
Mm,
way that can really hamper engagement within the group. So we're only about 3 weeks into our community,
yeah.
um, where we're trying to navigate how to do that. But it when done well, right, when you if you can get over that hurdle, or contribute to a group that already has some activity,
Yeah.
uh, or frankly, if you are somebody who's able to contribute in a group that's fairly quiet, again, that can be an opportunity to stand out and get more eyes on what you have to say.
I think excellent point. Excellent point. There's definitely some challenges with organic reach through the group content,
Mhm.
but still, I mean, it's an impressive tool to deploy, right?
It is.
Eddie formula, Eddie content formula, right? So what does Eddie stands for? Educate, demonstrate, inform, and entertain, right? One of the easiest ways to create content is educate people, right? You're a lawyer, you know a lot about what people don't know about, right? But one thing I will say, don't talk in your legalese, right? Don't talk in your legal lingo. Average person doesn't understand it. Break it down for them. I say, you know what? Always make it as easy when you're educating. If a 6-year old cannot figure it out, you're talking about it's too complex, right? So make it really digestible for people. But education is an amazing way. People don't you know a lot of the ambiguity and the trust you can build, like, with people, because especially when they're contacting a lawyer, there's a sense of fear, there's a sense of, like, knowing, like, not knowing all the information. And education is such an amazing tool to build that trust with people. And you'll see that it's like education is that way that you will attract people to you, right? Okay,
Mhm.
because they will perceive you as a subject matter expert, right? That this lawyer is is like, subject matter expert in, like, mergers and acquisition. He just talks about that, right? Or this lawyer is, like, just talks about, like, web3 startups, and he's an absolute expert at web3 content, right? Okay. Demonstrate, right? So, like, demonstrating about how, right? How means that, like, maybe take a case example that end to end this what happened, right? And it's kind of falls back to telling a story, right? That, hey, we have a client who went through this and this and this process, of course remaining in the privacy realm of things, but you can share and you can demonstrate what is happening in your practice, right, by sharing those stories, right? What do you think about education and demonstration, Tony?
So with demonstration, I one of the main things I try to help people with is mentioned Gary Vee earlier. He's got this thing he talks about with your content, uh, document, right? Document rather than like tell, right? And that's about basically like sharing your point of view, like whatever it is you're learning, you're struggling with, you're building, you're making, um, you're learning. How do you share that in real time? And that it speaks to both the demonstrate and the educate, where if you can just learn to show your point of view, um, you're able to do a couple things. One is you're able to like provide that value, that idea of value, which like education. I think we tend to think of as information. There's also, let's say, experiential education, right? So I think of it less as trying to transfer information to somebody else and more about trying to shorten learning gaps, right? Shorten learning curves for people. Um, the second thing that a point of view approach can do is that it almost always is going to help you embed whatever message you're trying to share in that storytelling framework, that it's going to provide a little bit of detail and a little bit of texture that's going to make whatever it is you're talking about more interesting than it would be if you were just talking about
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Excellent points. Excellent points. Two more, right? So Eddie, what is IE stands for? IE stands for inform. So this is different to educate. Like instead of delivering a new skill to your LinkedIn prospect, you're sharing some new insights, right? You know, news is a good way, or even opinion as well. Commentary and opinion, that's a really good way. And entertain, right? Uh, one of the most followed lawyer on TikTok is actually literally an entertainer, right? Now it's a very interesting thing that how that converts. That's another conversation, but when we talk about LinkedIn, right, you can also entertain in a way that you're still not compromising on your personal brand, but people find you interesting and funny, right? Okay. Um, like, like, so how, Tony, what would you think about entertaining, right? When it comes to lawyer, how can they entertain uh, on uh, on LinkedIn?
The bar is so low that you can be entertaining as a lawyer with relatively little effort. So if you can just put enough of yourself in there, inject enough personality that you are more interesting than a press release, that's pretty much good enough to be entertaining. You don't need to dress up and put on a big show. Like you're saying, lawyers who are just killing it on TikTok, like Jefferson Fisher is an example. And one guy started a firm out of Texas. He just shoots videos of himself in his car.
Mhm.
And like, that qualifies as entertainment simply by virtue of watching this guy talking, you know, in real time. Like that is enough to be entertaining. So I think it's just that understanding that a lot of people are coming to their LinkedIn feed. The LinkedIn feed is increasingly providing for people what previously they might have gone just to Instagram or Facebook for. They're spending more and more time on LinkedIn because people on LinkedIn are starting to provide more and more content that is not the just the facts, just the dry information.
Yeah.
It's it is it's starting to give people stuff they're really interested in seeing more of.
Excellent points. Andrew said, like Andrew, you're bang on, right? I mean, educating is so powerful through the ways, you mentioned, and helps you build the trust and build your authority in the space. And Tony, excellent point about entertaining. I mean, the bar is not high. You don't have to be super super creative and do something out of ordinary, right? And one of the interesting ways is like just being more human, being more authentic, being more raw is also part of that entertainment, right? That people are like, oh, I like this guy, I can relate with him, right? Okay, because once
Yeah.
you if you're basically standing behind a shell to put out a persona which who you are not, you'll see that you will have a hard time connecting with audience. So one thing I will definitely say that as part of the Eddie formula is be authentic, be yourself, right? Because that's where you're going to get the most authentic conversations and engagements and network effect if you're being yourself, being shamelessly being yourself, right? Okay, right. All right, so I think we are almost coming to an end of it. We talk about meet the presenters, right? So I think there's some excellent points being made in today's session. This recording will basically be will be hosted on LinkedIn. It will also be shared on other social media channels as well. uh, Reach out to myself or Tony on LinkedIn if you have any questions. But parting piece of advice, Tony, so before we let everyone go, like what would be one thing you would say that uh, they should implement or do at least to get this first step into their journey of building their audience on LinkedIn?
Mhm. The first step is to think about commenting on other people's posts that you find interesting. starting to contribute to conversation. And once you start doing that, the ball can start rolling, and you may experience this thing where the platform opens up in a new way. And that's where things can start to get really interesting.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Uh, my parting piece of advice would be that, show up. Just show up.
Mhm.
It's about building this habit, this muscle of showing up, because showing up will lead you to being consistent. Consistency will lead you to build more momentum, right? And as you see more momentum, I always say that, positive reinforcement encourages us to do more. When you see some engagement, when you see some traction, you'll feel like putting more of yourself out there, right? You're a busy professional, but even if you just dedicate this 10-15 minute window every day, which is very easy to do. I mean, you find those 10-15 minute blocks which are easy to work around your schedule it in if you like to, right? But you'll be surprised just by showing up, and the things we talked about, creating content, being more engaging, right? And building network. You like LinkedIn will do wonders. I know lawyers who have built their whole business on LinkedIn. I know lawyers who just use LinkedIn as a brand building tool, right? So it's an amazing tool. It's a free to use. All it needs some creativity and some time from you, right? So start creating, right? We're going to monitor the comment section in this event post. Ask any questions you have, and we love to, either myself or Tony will basically love to answer that. Thank you so much today, right? For joining us, or if you're watching us some other time, and stay tuned for our upcoming events. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Holly.